The title of section 10.2 is circumference. Oops. Let's try that again. Okay, 10.2 circumference. This is actually a fancy word for perimeter of a circle because it's the same thing. We're still talking about the distance around a shape. The reason it has a different word rather than just calling it perimeter is because we're not adding up the different sides of the shape, which is what we're doing for perimeter, because there are no sides to a circle. So we're actually just measuring the distance around the outside. And we have to do it differently again because there's no sides. It's just one continuous curving line kind of. So the different parts of a circle, we probably know them, but let's review. So here's a circle. Here's the center. So a radius would be from the middle to the outside. Are you guys coming in here?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that. This one came in while I was recording. I'm going to start labeling some points here. We'll call this point A. We'll call this point B. So the radius here would be the distance from A to B, that line segment there. If I drew a line through point A, and we'll call this C and D, that would be called a diameter. So the diameter would be a line touching both sides of the circle going through the center. That's CD. Then you have something called a chord, which is a line that touches both sides of the circle but doesn't go through the center. So if I just made a line like that, I called it EF, that would be a chord, kind of like a chord in a piano or any musical instrument, I guess. So EF would be a chord. The point A would be considered the center of the circle. AD could also be a radius. So we have a bunch of different radius here. A radius would be the same from the center of the circle to all points on the circle. Okay, so you could call the radius, in this case, AC or CA. You could call it AB, which I've written above. You could call it AD or DA. Any of those would be the radius, and they're always going to be the same distance. So to find the circumference of a circle, we have a couple. Oops. That's annoying. Okay. So to find the circumference of a circle, we have a couple different formulas. We can use circumference equals pi times diameter, or we can use circumference equals pi 2. Let me change that. Equals 2 times pi times the radius. So if I draw another circle here, you'll see how these formulas are exactly the same. Because notice if we make a radius, we'll call it AB, right? And if there's a diameter of BC, notice the radius is always half of the diameter. So this whole distance here would be the diameter, whereas half the distance would be the radius. And so we have two radiuses equals one diameter. So this D here, I'll put it in red. D is the same thing as this 2 and this R, right? So the D is just worth 2 R's, and so we can write it either way. Sometimes you're given the diameter, in which case you'll want to use this formula. Sometimes you're given the radius, and you'll want to use this formula. Either way, you can use whichever formula you want. You'll just have to make sure that you use the appropriate information. If you want to use the formula on the right and you're given a diameter, you just have to cut it in half to make it a radius. So if you look on page 443 for some of these problems, problem number 1 through 4, they're just asking a couple different questions. Name the circle. A circle is named by its center point, so the circle O is what they're describing right there. Find the radius, that's given as 8.6 in the picture, and the diameter is just double that, so for the answer number 4. Where we get into doing some calculations is in 5 through 12. It says for number 5, find the circumference of a circle with the given measure. So if the diameter is 2, so D equals 2 meters, and they want us to find the circumference. Okay, well when we're given D, we're going to want to use the circumference equals pi times D. Alright, so circumference is going to equal pi times 2 meters. Oftentimes a book will describe which version of pi to use. As we know, pi is a constant, and it is approximately equal to 3.14. Some problems want you to use an approximation of 22 over 7. If you actually divide 22 by 7, it doesn't come out to exactly 3.14 and stop, and you can try that with long division or on a calculator. It keeps going. 3.14 is not equal. Notice I'm not doing an equal sign. I'm doing a little squiggly equal sign because these are approximations of pi. You've probably heard of contests where people try to memorize many numbers of pi. So in this case, the book is wanting us, they don't say specifically, I usually use 3.14 for, well, it's hard to describe, so I'll use 3.14 for now. So I'm going to change pi to 3.14, and then we have the 2 there, and so now we're just going to do some multiplication. 3.14 times 2, and we're going to get 8.2 so 6.28 would be the answer to number 5.